In a nation that never misses a chance to call out Islamophobia on the global stage, Pakistan seems curiously silent about the terror faced by its own non-Muslim citizens, an eerie silence when it comes to minority persecution. Beneath its righteous veneer lies a chilling reality, a pipeline of abductions, threats, and coercion designed to strip young Hindu and Christian girls of their identity and their freedom. So why is forced conversion treated like a sacred ritual rather than a criminal offense? We discuss that and more. Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Reports suggest that up to 1,000 religious minority women and girls, mainly Hindus and Christians, aged between 12 and 25, are abducted only to resurface days later as someone else, someone Muslim, someone married, and someone silenced. These aren't isolated incidents. They follow a method enabled by loopholes in Pakistan's legal system, protected by religious extremism, and overlooked by an indifferent state. From Sindh's dusty villages to Karachi's cramped courtrooms, minority families plead for justice. But in a country built on selective empathy, who really hears their screams? Let's get one thing straight. This isn't about spiritual awakening. This is about power. Power over the weak, the voiceless, and the cornered. In Pakistan, where a toxic brew of religious zeal, gendered violence, and systemic neglect bubbles just beneath the surface, forced conversion has become less a crime and more a tradition wrapped in the garb of faith. Girls as young as 12 are plucked from their families, converted under duress, and married to men old enough to be their fathers.
I think so. So, with respect to persecution of religious minorities, and that's one of the fundamentally the primary persecution in Pakistan is of it's Muslim on Muslim. You've got the Ahmadis who can't, for example, call themselves Muslims. They've been barred by constitution and law, and then you have Shias and that sort of thing. But in terms of this particular discrimination against Hindus or to some extent Christians as well, where you've got forced conversions and that sort of thing, especially in Sindh. I think what we have to understand is that there is a class and caste angle to it as well. And, I know Pakistanis love to say that we don't have any caste in Pakistan because of Islam and that sort of thing. But there is that because you see, even the conversions that happen generally happen of scheduled caste, sort of Dalits and scheduled caste Hindus. You talk to a Deepak Parwani or a Dewan Sachal, and they would say that everything is hunky-dory in Pakistan, with respect to Hindus. But, it's the lower caste and the, sort of the poorest of the poor who suffer this persecution. Now, as far as Pakistan's parliament is concerned, Pakistan's parliament has been trying to enact a law on forced conversions, particularly on this issue since 2019. And it's a very progressive law as well, which has been tabled again and again. But unfortunately, there is the reactionary retrogressive element. Remember, Pakistan is the great battleground for many ideas of Islam, and between reformists and fundamentalists and traditionalists. So I think that battle goes on because some of Pakistan's state institutions, like the Council of Islamic Ideology, they are resisting such a move. So I think that's where the issue is.
No reporting on this subject is complete without one man, Mian Abdul Haq, better known as Mian Mithu, a cleric, a former politician, and allegedly the kingpin of Pakistan's forced conversion racket. To Hindus and Christians in Sindh, his name evokes sheer terror. He's not a preacher, he's a predator with a pulpit. Human rights activists describe him as a conversion factory. Victims' families call him a monster in a turban. And Pakistani authorities? They mostly call him untouchable.
These politicians, most of them depend on people like Mian Mithu. And that's the problem. That's the great paradox of having a constitutional democracy is, we still haven't broken away from the biradari politics, the caste politics, the local politics, the mohalla politics. all of that goes on, and where people like Mian Mithu assume a central significance. You would hear a lot of Pakistanis boast about the fact that we don't elect religious parties to power. That's because the secular parties actually rely on these people to deliver the votes. So yes, I think that that's a fair observation, that there's no political will, but there are people within these parties who are fighting that battle. They're trying to get, so for example, in Sindh, the Pakistan People's Party has a number of people who are trying to push back against this. Again, ultimately, it's people like Mian Mithu have their usefulness, and that's why they end up determining the course of action. And like you said, the Sindh Assembly had to withdraw its bill, and now the federal bill is also in cold storage right.
Mithu's name is linked to over 100 cases of abductions and conversions. His shrine in Ghotki, a one-way gate, girls go in, never to return. One of the most chilling examples is Rinkle Kumari, a Hindu teenager abducted in 2012. Her family claimed Mithu's goons threatened them, while Rinkle was paraded in court as a convert under armed guard. Despite her obvious distress and her family's pleas, the judge ruled she had converted willingly. The court's gavel rang louder than her sobs. But why do so many girls choose Mian Mithu's mosque to convert? Coincidence? Or a well-oiled operation protected by political immunity? Even after the Rinkle case made international headlines, Mithu faced no meaningful consequences. The Pakistan People's Party quietly dropped him, but he didn't disappear. He evolved. Today, despite being sanctioned by the UK for his role in forced conversions, Mithu continues his activities in Sindh with impunity. In any other country, he'd be in prison. In Pakistan, he still commands a following. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The epicenter of this practice is Sindh province. But why Sindh? Simple. It's where most Pakistan's Hindu minorities live. That makes these communities an easy target. Poor, politically powerless, and socially expendable. In a society where patriarchy already rules the day, minority girls are seen as low-hanging fruit for predatory men and opportunistic clerics. The age range? Often between 12 and 16. The mechanism? Shockingly brazen. Girls are kidnapped, taken to local mosques, pressured or outright threatened to convert, and then married to their abductors, legalized under Sharia law, which conveniently allows underage marriage if both parties are Muslim. And just like that, a crime becomes a ceremony. It's not just ideology, it's economics. Activists and investigators allege that a shadowy network of clerics, corrupt police officers, and marriage registrars profit from this pipeline. Forced conversions aren't just tolerated, they're monetized.
I think it's a major challenge, and but there are some very good lawyers who are taking it up as their patriotic duty. I mean, they're doing it out of this concern that Pakistan should not have this injustice. But yes, you're right, it's uphill, primarily because of the problem in Pakistan is that the prevalent the majority faith that is there, and I'm talking about the sect especially, it has connections, and it has sort of these deep roots, which basically stand in the way of any progressive action. And that's what's been happening. I think it is, just to answer your question, it is pretty uphill. But yes, there are still lawyers who are trying to do this, and they're doing it out of a patriotic duty. Yeah, I don't think, I think in terms of the clerics, these are not the clerics that enjoy the state patronage. It's other clerics that do. But in terms of, these are the ones we're talking about, Mian Mithu and the gang. These are basically local hundas, who are being employed by your local politician, who's like trying to control this, so on and so forth. But in terms of the state, the connection, yes, it is a money-making enterprise. This is something, they're sort of. But remember, this is but it's a very localized thing for them. It's a very personal sort of issue for these groups and these clerics and stuff. It becomes an issue of who sways the local populace. So that's what. But what I'm trying to say is that it is predominantly, in terms of state patronage, I don't see a particular nexus between the state itself and these people. I think the state is actually quite embarrassed of these people. I think and that's why there are efforts made from time to time to reform the law, to bring and forced conversions law that would, once and for all resolve the issue. But unfortunately, again, the resistance comes from the clerics, and these are all clerics, and this is, like I said, Pakistan is the great battleground for the ideas of Islam, right? I mean, you've got the reformist idea, and it's being resisted by the fundamentalist and the traditional idea. And then you have the clerics who think, that their shop, and I say it, very clearly, that for them, religion is a shop. Their shop, continues to sell the product that is in demand, right? And that's why they, become the gatekeepers of religion, especially the Council of Islamic Ideology and that sort of thing. So that's the thing. That's the nexus. Is there is the issue is ultimately that such discriminations are very popular because they've gotten sanction of the clergy, and the clergy is something that's, they still can sway public opinion in Pakistan.
Religious figures like Rahimi aren't lone wolves. They're part of a larger ecosystem where abducting a girl, converting her, and selling her into marriage is a revenue model. And the price? The life of a child, the grief of a family, and the slow, painful erosion of minority faiths in Pakistan. Meanwhile, local authorities shrug their shoulders. Police often refuse to file first information reports, that is FIRs, or worse, accept coerced statements from victims declaring their willingness to convert. These statements are paraded in court as evidence, never mind that they were made under threats of death, rape, or harm to their families. They were made under duress. Pakistan's constitution pays lip service to religious freedom under Articles 20, 22 and 36. But in practice, the law is as helpful as a paper umbrella in a hurricane. The one real attempt to fix this mess came in 2016 when the Sindh Assembly passed a bill criminalizing forced conversions. It introduced tough penalties and prohibited conversions under the age of 18. But guess what? Religious parties cried foul, called it anti-Islam, and the bill was buried before it saw the light of day. Another attempt in 2020, this time at the national level, was predictably killed by the Senate's Religious Affairs Committee. When saving kidnapped children is deemed un-Islamic, the moral compass is spinning wildly out of control. And so, minority communities live in fear. Parents are afraid to send their daughters to schools. Estimates suggest nearly 5,000 Pakistani Hindus migrate to India annually, driven not by economic dreams, but by nightmares of abduction and forced marriage. The psychological toll is immeasurable. Victims are left scarred for life, isolated, stigmatized, and often trapped in marriages that began with terror. Families disintegrate, communities shrink, and through it all, Pakistan's ruling elite either looks the other way or worse, plays dumb. International human rights organizations, from Amnesty International to the US State Department, have repeatedly slammed Pakistan for its failure to protect its minorities. But Islamabad responds with the usual script: deny, deflect, and deploy whataboutism. Look at India, they say. Look at Israel. Never mind the fact that in Pakistan, religious freedom for minorities is more fiction than fact. Inside the country, resistance exists, but it's embattled. Civil society groups, minority lawmakers, and a handful of progressive voices continue to push for reform. But they're up against hardline religious clerics, political cowardice, and a judiciary that often prioritizes appeasement over justice. Let's not mince words. Pakistan may call itself a democracy, but when it comes to religious minorities, it behaves more like a theocracy with a license to abuse. The forced conversion of minors isn't just a human rights issue, it's a moral collapse, one that's being quietly accepted and institutionally enabled. Meaningful change will require far more than strongly worded resolutions and half-hearted bills. It demands a total overhaul, legal, cultural, and political. First, Pakistan must pass enforceable legislation that criminalizes forced conversions and sets 18 as the minimum age for all conversions and marriages. Second, law enforcement must be held accountable for failing to act. Third, shelters, legal aid, and psychological support must be provided to victims, not just as a formality, but as a fundamental right. And above all, Pakistan must decide what kind of country it wants to be. One that hides behind religious sentiment to justify cruelty, or one that confronts its demons head-on. Forced conversions in Pakistan are not rare. They're not accidental. They're not fringe. They are a well-oiled system of abuse, engineered through religious fanaticism, greased by corruption, and tolerated by a state that prefers silence over accountability. And the victims? They are the forgotten girls of Sindh, the invisible daughters of Pakistan, whose stories end not in justice, but in obscurity. Until Pakistan stops pretending that its minorities are citizens only on paper, the world will see through this charade. And every time another child is abducted, converted, and erased, the country slips further into the darkness of its own making. Because the question isn't whether forced conversions happen in Pakistan. The question is, how much longer will the world let it happen? Thank you for watching Statecraft.